What's up, crew? Welcome back to the Nate the Great YouTube channel. My name is Nate. This is day 6 of my, out of 12 of my sugar fasting protocol stint. I am out here doing my Zoom first thing in the morning. I got some channel updates. So again, like I mentioned yesterday, I am less than 1 week away from my 5K. Gonna be running over there on the Gulf. Today I am out just doing a normal walk, and tomorrow I will be doing my last, not timed run, but distance run. That'll be my prep. So in addition, I am again working on my coaching setup. I'll be dedicating a whole video to that here shortly, probably in the next month or so, once I get through these trials, which I plan on going for about another month. And both of my individuals that I'm working with are doing really, really well. And I'm excited to showcase kind of what I offer and what that plan is, the program is going to be. Again, I'm still working on all the details on that. So let's pop up the information up on the screen here. And you'll see here, my body fat percentage is creeping downwards. My muscle mass is going up slowly, as it would be expected. I know this is one thing that I think is important to point out is gaining muscle is actually much more challenging and much more time dependent and consistency dependent than weight loss. I mean, you can lose a lot of weight really quickly, but gaining that muscle and lean muscle mass is one of those things that you really got to settle in and kind of stymie the conversation I want to have today about how do you move out of starting something and move into doing something. So move out of that initiating phase where everything is new, it's fun and exciting, you have all the motivation, you have all the inspiration, and then how do you transition that into something that is consistent into the execution phase, right? So the doing part, when it's no longer exciting, when the inspiration fades, how do you continue? Because again, the data is out there. You starting something is really easy. I'm gonna do this thing, and then you get the gym membership, or you get the things, and you buy the equipment or the whatever, and you start off and you're really excited. And I see this a lot when because I teach karate, and again, that's another video that I'll be showcasing here once I get done with my black belt journey at the end of this year. But I digress. So yeah, I see this a lot in new students. They come, they start karate, it's really exciting, you see this wonder about their face, and they're having a great time, and they're learning new things, and everything is so new and fun. And then 6 months into their journey, they're just like, I'm bored, and I'm not having fun anymore. And then their parents generally let them quit. And so, the amount of people that actually start their black belt journey, and it's about a 3-year journey all the way to black belt, is about, I'd say, out of 100 kids, you're looking at maybe one kid. And again, those kids also go through that phase where they want to quit. They don't want to do it anymore. And generally speaking, I can't speak for every person that, young person on the black belt journey, but more times than not, their parents are the ones that say, nope, I'm not going to let you quit. And eventually what happens is those students, they eventually come back around and they start to engage. They start to level up their experience. A lot of them start to teach other kids how to do karate, and that really kind of starts to build momentum as to why you don't want to quit, because everyone's going to go through that lull phase. Everybody is going to find themselves eventually not excited, not inspired. And so this is the topic that I wanted to talk about today, which is how do you transition out of that starting block and move into something that more resembles like a day-to-day habit. So the first thing I want to acknowledge is that most people fail not because they didn't try. Most people fail because they didn't continue to keep trying. And what that means is, if you look at the statistics, and there's plenty of spaces where this falls in line, which is weight loss or health journey, or heck, you even talk about marriages. And it all has a constant undertow theme, which is At the beginning, you know, you're in that honeymoon phase where everything is exciting and new and you're doing you're having fun and you're seeing results. And then at some point in the future, it can be a week, it could be a month, it could be years. It no longer has that spark. It no longer has that uniqueness, that newness to it. And if you relied solely on those, you know, emotional parts, the excitement and the something new, and you're going to find that ultimately that fades. And if you don't solidify the things that you're doing in habits, in daily routine, you are going to find yourself waning. You're going to find yourself falling off and not being able to get back on. So the first thing I need everybody to understand is that when it's normal that a lot of people fail. And really, I always look at failure is a way to learn rather than just give up. So the idea is when you fall off the wagon, and you will, especially if you're starting a new journey, weight loss journey, and you make a mistake, you know, there's two paths that you can take. You can take the path of least resistance, which is going to be, well, that didn't work, give up and just go back to your miserable life, whatever that is. Or you can write it down. You can figure out, okay, how did I feel? What happened? What was the circumstances behind what happened? And learn from that situation. Don't dwell on it. Don't hold yourself, you know, to this higher standard, thinking that you have to be perfect. And to that end, you know, start to understand and figure out what the habits that you need to build are. So during that initiating phase, when you're excited and everything is new and novel, figure out ways to build things into a routine. So for me, as you can see, I'm out here walking in my forest. This is a routine. This is something that even in the last few days, I've really not wanted to do it just because my legs are really sore from all the running, and I've been, you know, stretching everything out and getting the tendon, that long tendon down there and stretching it out. But I've been very demotivated to want to go out and walk because it just really hurts. But I know as soon as I get out there, as soon as I put in the work and I get going for about 10, 15 minutes, all the ligaments, all the muscles start to loosen up. And by the end of my walk, I feel amazing. So without solidifying this walk every morning into a good habit, something that I can just do without thinking, more times than not, that brain is going to say, oh, you know, you're a little sore. Why don't you just take a day off? And then that day turns into 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, years. And so the first thing I need everybody to try and do is find the things that you know you can be consistent with, that don't necessarily take a lot of effort, but can have maximum impact. For me, it's a nice little walk in the morning. It gets me about anywhere between 7,000 and 10,000 steps first thing in the morning. Again, doesn't really impact my day because by the time I get back to the house, I'm not, you know, it's like maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking a little bit later because it's on the weekend here. But if you think about, you know, all the things that you got to do out throughout the day, I can still take the dogs out in the morning. I can still put the trash out. I can do the dishes, and I still have an hour before I even have to start work. I mean, those are the types of things that, you know, what do I got to do to figure that out? So the first thing is I got to try to get to bed by 10 o'clock and be asleep by 10:30. And to that end, you're like, oh, I'm a night owl. Well, okay. Again, that's an excuse. That's a reason. Figure out why you like to stay up late and maybe adjust to say, okay, what's more important? Going to bed and getting a good 7, 8 hours of sleep and then getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going for my walk every day. That sets me off on a good path. Or do I want to stay up and play video games or watch that Netflix show, that extra episode? And that means more to me than getting that 7 or 8 hours of solid sleep and you know, contributing to building a good habit. Again, those are the things you need to take stock in. And this is just one example, but I'm sure however it applies in your life, you can take this advice and kind of just reiterate on what works and what doesn't work. So the second thing I want you to work on when it comes to getting out of that initiating phase and then settling into that execution phase which is after you figured out the good habits, build your environment to be successful. So for me, this weight vest right here is right next to my desk. And I have a great routine in the morning. I get up, I weigh myself, I grab some cold water, and then I get my sugar bomb in, which is about, 300 to 400 calories of basically, orange juice, maple syrup, a little bit of raw honey, some blueberries with a little bit of sugar, like 10 grams of sugar. And that gets me going, and that lasts for 5-6 hours. And every morning I do that, okay? Then I go to my computer, my work computer, my desk, and this thing right here is staring me in the face, right? So I've set my environment up to remind myself, hey, don't forget, you got to go for your walk. And to that end, I want to go for my walk. So setting up your environment for success is going to help. And again, all of these things I'm asking you to do are things that I would recommend you try to do during the initiating phase, right? The phase that's the most exciting, the most, part where you're going to be wanting to do it. That way, when you get to the point where, months go by and you're like, oh, now I have to do this, and then the excitement's gone, you have some things set up for you to help you through those days where you don't want to go. So those are the two big ones, right? So setting up, building good habits, and then setting up your environment to reinforce those good habits. In addition to that, what I would say is don't beat yourself up for not being perfect. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, which is if you think that you have to go for whatever your good habit is, and you're like, all right, I have to do this, every single day, otherwise I'm going to fail. And I think this is where a lot of people get caught up in the all or nothing mentality, which is if you're always thinking, I have to do this exactly right all the time, and if there's no room for mistakes, if there's no room for error, more times than not, you're going to find yourself beating yourself up so badly because you're not perfect. I'm not perfect either, and I think it's important to just understand that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn and listen to your body, and some days you're just going to have those things that aren't conducive to the weight loss journey or whatever health journey you're on, and just acknowledge it and move back. Just like I mentioned about, what do you do when you had an excess day that was unplanned? More times than not, if you let that fester, if you let that really eat you up and defeat you, you're going to find yourself using that as an excuse. Your mind's going to use that as an excuse to go down that dark path where you fall off the wagon and you stay off for, multiple, a time frame that's going to set you back even further. But if you just allow that one day, once in a while, to get into your brain and say, yep, that happened, and then just acknowledge it and move forward and immediately get back on that next day on whatever you're doing on that plan, you're going to find that actually is really, really good, even though it seems really terrible at the time, especially if it was a binge or some kind of, extremely unplanned and to your end, maybe not at the healthiest options food-wise or whatever it is. You're going to find that if you can just get past that and just build it into an expectation that eventually at some point you're going to have those moments, and then just have an understanding of how to deal with it, you're going to find that it reinforces, it doesn't derail, it doesn't deter, it just literally builds and a foundation that is so sustainable that you're going to be able to overcome those moments and really dodge and weave how life gets thrown at you. Because if you think, here's my perfect plan, and then something pops up, maybe a friend pops in and wants to go out for dinner, you can just go out for a dinner. And then the next day, or even that evening, depending on where you're at, what time, right? You could just, yep, that happened. And then don't worry about the scale. Just get back at it and enjoy the process of being flexible, being, patient with yourself and not beating yourself up anytime that you don't follow things straight to the T. Because ultimately, the stricter you are with anything that you're trying to do, the more chances you're going to find yourself failing, making mistakes. And then if you let that beat yourself up and tell yourself that you failed, you're a failure and you're not good enough, and might as well just give up because you can never sustain this long term. So anyways, those are the kind of the three things, my tidbits that I wanted to throw out there that hopefully can help you get through that initiating phase and get into the execution phase. So I hope everybody's having a really good day. I will talk to everybody on the next one. Take care. Bye.